And you're going to have to begin to conquer the flesh, and little by little, day by day, as you live, there is a progression in the conquering of the flesh. There is a progression. The new life and the new man begins to grow. It's like a child that's born. You have that little baby. It looks maybe like its father or like its mother. You know it's your child. It has all of its parts in the right places, and it begins to grow and grow and grow. And the same thing is true in the spiritual life. You are born again. You are a new life. You are a brand new creation. But there is to be progress. There is to be growing. There is to be a growing into the likeness of Christ. You see it in verse 10, to the place where you are literally in the image of Him that made you, where you become like Jesus Christ in every sense. So the new nature is complete, and yet it has a capacity for growth. Just like a baby's complete with all the parts, and yet it has a capacity to grow. As the new birth is a recreation in God's image, which was lost in the fall, so the subsequent life is a deepening of the image thus engraved. And God, day by day, deepens that image. You see that, don't you, with a baby? Well, I don't know who he looks like. Well, you can begin to tell he looks like his father. Well, and by the time they get to be, somebody walked up to me and looked at Matt and said, boy, he's a carbon copy of you. As they get a little older, you know, that it just becomes more clear who they look like. Poor kid. But you see, that's the way it is spiritually. You are born and you got all your parts and there's a resemblance to Christ, but it matures and grows and you become more like Him and more like Him and more like Him. And that's the deepening of the divine image that's been engraved in you. Becoming more and more like Christ is the progress of the new man. In 1 Corinthians 15:45, so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a life-giving spirit. However, that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural, and afterward that which is spiritual. The first man is of the earth, earthy. The second man is the Lord from heaven, comparing Adam to Christ. As is the earthy, such are they also that are earthy. As is the heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly. In other words, we're not earthy Adamic people anymore. We're heavenly, Christ-like. And as we have borne the image of the earthy, we shall also bear what? The image of the heavenly. Now, people, that is an astounding statement. That God is going to make us to be like Christ inevitably. And I'll say it again. Inevitably. Inescapably. If you're a believer, you will be made like Christ. That is God's promise. Listen to Romans 8:28. We know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. Why? For whom He did foreknow, He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of His Son. If you are saved, it is God's plan to make you like the Son. It is God's plan to make you to be like Jesus Christ. That is the promised progress. That is God's fantastic, exciting, unbelievable, incomprehensible plan to make you like Christ. How does He do it? What does it say in Colossians? It says that you are renewed unto, literally ace, you are renewed unto epignosis, or deep and thorough and full and complete knowledge. There is a process of renewing going on in you to bring you to full knowledge. Look at 2 Corinthians. Well, don't turn to it. I'll read it to you. 2 Corinthians 4:16. For which cause we faint not. But though our outward man perish, Paul says, if I'm persecuted and I get banged around on my outside, my inward man is renewed day by day. You see, Paul knew that God was at work in his inner man day by day by day by day. The process of maturing you, of conforming you to Christ goes on day after day. You read Romans 8. I like to entitle Romans 8, What God Does for You, Whether You Like It or Not. That's what it means. What the Holy Spirit is doing in your life, whether you like it or not. He is conforming you to Christ. He is renewing you daily. And He is renewing you, watch this now in verse 10 of Colossians 3, unto knowledge. He wants to build you up to full knowledge. This is the progress of the spiritual life. This is the growth in the spiritual life. He's not saying renew you by knowledge, although that's part of it. He's saying renew you to the place where your knowledge is complete. That it's the idea of the end in mind. William Hendrickson says this, when a man is led through the waters of salvation, they are ankle deep at first, but as he progresses, they become knee deep, and they reach to the loins and are finally impassable except by swimming. End quote. And it's all done unto knowledge. You might have figured that instead of knowledge, he'd say good works. I mean, he might have said, in contrast to the evil works of the old man, the new man is renewed unto good works. But he goes deeper than that, because behind those good works is knowledge. Deep, thorough, complete knowledge. The new man progresses to a complete knowledge. And I'll promise you this, when you get to that mature knowledge, then the right kind of behavior comes from it. How does Paul say in Romans 12, you're going to be transformed by the renewing of your what? Of your mind. That's how you'll know what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God and do it. You've got to have your mind transformed.